As is news to nobody at this point, Arlington will be joining with surrounding communities to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War. We will all be taking in a lot of the familiar stories from our founding and history. But how about those stories that have remained largely untold? That's the question this exhibition from ArtLinks seeks to address.
ArtLinks Arlington is a network of artists who puts together an annual exhibit at the Arlington Center for the Arts. This year, their exhibit, As We Turn 250, Arlington 250, The Untold Stories, amplifies these voices in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and Arlington's contribution to it. We at ACMI were able to speak to Lori Bogdan, a member of ArtLinks and the curator of this exhibit.
Well, this is a difficult theme. People in Arlington aren't necessarily aware that the 250th anniversary of the start of the Revolutionary War is coming up this April. And they don't know that there are a lot of hidden stories about the 250th. So we had to explain during the call to art so we would get some interesting content. This is my piece. It's called Threads of Revolution, and it tells two stories. One, it talks about the craft that people had during the colonial times, both weaving and the craft that they had to have this battle.
We were also lucky to speak with a few of the featured artists within the exhibit, including Marilyn Downs, a landscape artist whose piece, Kate Dreams, focuses on Kate, an enslaved woman who lived in the historical Jason Russell House during colonial times.
And I chose to paint her as I imagined her because the history of enslaved people in New England and in Arlington is often an untold story, which is the theme of this show. So the show itself kind of spoke to me, like the idea of untold stories, and as much as, we're kind of telling the story of the American Revolution, and we kind of like celebrate that and mark that part of our history often in this area. I thought I think there are many people in Arlington who don't realize that there were enslaved people who were in this town. We often think, oh, that was in the South, that was somewhere else.
Frank Tadley, a photographer based in Arlington, is also one of the artists featured in the show.
Every year there's a reenactment, so I took photographs from last year's reenactment to represent that. Well, the day itself, I probably took 300, 400 pictures. So the most difficult thing was trying to find 2 or 3 that really summed up the different parts. So one of them shows a layout at the Jason Russell House, which is a very historic house here in town, and shows how things looked and felt at that time.
We were also able to speak to Bo Han, whose piece depicted the Robbins Library located in Arlington Center.
Here I was trying to kind of capture the fact that although we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, this has been a evolving history where the foundation is there, but things have to change and evolve with the times to meet the needs of the community.
We encourage you to engage with Arlington history and artists by visiting the Arlington Center for the Arts and seeing the ArtLinks exhibit As We Turn 250, Arlington 250, The Untold Stories.
I've learned more about Arlington history than I ever knew just in the last few months. And it's been nice to gather the people for this show because they too went out and did a great amount of research on all of the history and the historic buildings and such. And it's nice to see that come together in one show.
As you heard, the artists themselves learned a lot of history they didn't know. Now it's your turn.